that. Yeah, just about when it kicked off.
Yes, yes.
Okay, I think I have this.
All right. So Luke, we ready?
Right.
Oh, yeah, let me send a message. All right, here we go. All right. Let's see. All right. Thanks everyone for joining us. I want to introduce everyone to Dyana Williams, co-creator of Black Music Month. She is a native New Yorker, radio and music industry professional, journalist, community activist, documentarian, as well as the co-founder of the Pennsylvania-based nonprofit advocacy organization, the International Association of African American Music Foundation. She sits on the board of directors of the National Museum of African American Music. Additionally, Ms. Williams is the CEO of Influence Entertainment, a media consulting and artist development firm where she coaches high-profile celebrities in the sports and entertainment arenas.
I'm exhausted from that introduction, Orlando.
Hey, I had to
That's
give
called doing the most.
Yes.
That's called doing the most. That's what we call that.
I had to give them the all, let them know how accomplished and who you really are here. And
You're gracious.
like we're so honored to actually have you join us today.
As I am with you, you are having an illustrious career, and you are a perfect example of why we need to celebrate June Black Music Month. So I salute you, Orlando, for all the work you've done, are currently doing, and will do in the future.
Well, thank you so very much. So Dyana, today is actually the 41st anniversary of Black Music Month. And some consider it African American Music Month. We'll get into that later on in the conversation, but congratulations on that great accomplishment.
Thank you.
I'd say, why did you see the need for a Black Music Month back in 1979?
Well, actually, the birth of it started in 1978 with Kenny Gamble. Gamble had traveled to Nashville, Music City, and saw how organized the country music entity was there, to the fact where they took a city and said, okay, Music City. They developed a whole economy around country music. So he was inspired. The Country Music Association had been to the White House, and he felt, along with many others, that it needed to be a similar period of time to acknowledge the contributions of people in front of the, that most folks know, and the behind the scenes people like you, like me, like Teresa Sanders, our good mutual friend, working hard to develop the careers of music makers. So Kenny Gamble, Ed Wright, who was the president of NATRA, the NATRA organization was the National Association of Television and Radio Artists. And so NATRA teamed up and the Black Music Association was created. And the concept of June Black Music Month was made official by President Jimmy Carter this day, June 7th, 1979. And that I came in to do my building part.
Okay. So the first celebration was in the White House on June 7th, 1979. Can you give me a little brief history of the parties involved in putting that celebration together?
Absolutely, Orlando. Got to give credit to Clarence Avant, because as we saw in the Netflix documentary on his life, he is the godfather. And he made a few significant phone calls to help make that White House event happen. A lot of people, he just doesn't get the credit, but I've been outing him recently because he's very on the low, with the things that he does behind the scenes and doesn't always look for credit. He's there for the greater good of making it happen. So President Jimmy Carter and his wife, Rosalind, hosted the event on the lawn of the White House. It was a picnic atmosphere. And that day there were performances by Chuck Berry, one of the architects of rock, Sarah Powell, who was a classical singer, Billy Eckstine, our, legendary, like Arthur Price, just great balladeer, baritone singer. Let's see. Oh my goodness. Evelyn Champagne King from New York and Philadelphia. and Andre Crouch. So there were representatives of different genres of music under the direction of Dexter Wansel and MFSB, Mother, Father, Sister, Brother, out of Philadelphia.
Okay, beautiful. What were the challenges of actually trying to even bring about a celebration and Black History, Black Music Month? And
well, Gamble's concept, along with other members of the Black Music Association, was to celebrate Black is Green and to start a campaign suggesting the reality in the music industry that Black music generates billions of dollars. And so it is an economic engine. It is also an export of ours created by Americans that happen to be Black, our indigenous music, one of our greatest exports around the planet, to the tune of billions of dollars. So the concept was to recognize the fact that Black music generates lots of money. It is not just feel good, dance, party, snap your fingers, praise in church. It is significantly more than that. And you know, being on the business end of things, how we generate money and how oftentimes those deals are not necessarily, they do not necessarily compensate the creators, the originators of the music, like, for instance, white people get. So, yeah, a lot of great people were involved. Jules Malamud, LeBaron Taylor. I mean, the names, Gamble called me the other day. He said, don't forget to mention Leon Huff. Okay, I won't. Don't forget to mention this. So there were a plethora of people who wanted to see us galvanize our economic and cultural power. And that was the birth of Black Music Month.
So there was an association called the Black Music Association. Can we get into that a little bit? The founder,
Yes.
was it yourself, Kenny Gamble, and it was a DJ from Cleveland? Or
well, Ed Wright and myself and Kenny Gamble are credited as the founders of June Black Music Month. I worked on the congressional side, if you will. I went to Congress and was able to get legislation passed that recognized June as Black Music Month. That did not happen until, the late 90s. And what happened was I used to produce a music conference called the AAMAM celebration, which took place in June, Black Music Month. And it was an opportunity for consumers to come together with music industry professionals to celebrate people in every aspect of the industry. And it was very similar to the Black Music Association, except for the BMA was a membership organization. And so they had different divisions. There were the artists, there were the producers, there were the executives, and all of these entities came together. But Orlando, sad to say that, which is not uncommon, in-house fighting, power grabs, all of those things started occurring with the BMA, and it just started to splinter. So this beautiful idea of us coming together as a powerful lobbying and economic engine just started to unravel at some point, and the BMA no longer went into existence. When I established AAMAM, I decided not to make it a membership entity, but more of an advocacy organization. So through my work on Capitol Hill, we were able to go back to the White House, and then President Bill Clinton designated June officially from the White House again, because Jimmy Carter did not sign a presidential proclamation that day. But we as Black folks kept celebrating it. We didn't necessarily need that. But when I asked Bill Clinton to host an event, much like Jimmy Carter had done, that's when the White House said, go get legislation, come back, we'll host you, we'll do everything. And it took me maybe 3 years to get that done.
Thank you for that as well. And I even have to say, I think there's a time that's where the Black Music Association is needed currently at this current climate, the success of Black music as a whole. So I, challenge all my Black executives to kind of come together.
Well, Michael Malden, who used to run the urban division at Columbia Records, and also Demet Guidry, another high-powered executive who's been in the business, have started a Black American Music Association in recent years. So there is an entity, it's picking up steam. And you're right, we need to be organized. But what happened this past week with the Black Out movement that was organized by two sisters. They get overlooked, and they should not be, Jamila and Brianna. They are the sisters who, in a conversation, watching the news, being sad about the murder of George Floyd and numerous other, Breonna Taylor. I mean, the list is long of names that we know, and then again, names we don't know. They were feeling sorrowful. And in a conversation, they said, you know, I'm gonna take off next week in solidarity. We gotta be, and one thing led to another. They shared it with some of their colleagues, and one thing then just blew up into what happened Tuesday. And I will tell you that they are planning a sustained movement to help eradicate racism in the music industry, parity for executives, because you have executives who are Black, executives who are white, and the white executives we know are paid far more than the Black executives. How come when they're doing similar jobs? So there's now a movement to fix a lot of these wrongs. And will it happen in our generation?
Yeah,
probably not. We're talking about systemic racism that has been going on since we were brought over as forced immigrants to these shores. So,
well, thank you, and I applaud those young ladies for their effort.
yes.
As well, and
but we have to support them. We have to continue to. We have to lobby. We have to, we have to learn how to advocate and use our economic strength to serve notice to the companies that we put our money into. So, for instance, Urban One, one of the Black-owned media company, Kathy Hughes and her son Alfred Liggins, they have people who are advertisers on their stations. You don't like something about the station or the music that's being played, flex. Write them first. Reach out to management and the leadership and say, don't like that. Don't like this. Support the advertisers who support the business. We've got to learn how to flex. And I think that is really important. And we don't flex enough. If you take our combined economic power, we could shut down just like we did. And I had this conversation with Kathy Hughes just this earlier today. Montgomery boycott. Black folks did not ride those buses for a year, Orlando. And you know what? It got to the point where the owners of the bus company, who were white, said, please come back. You can ride the front. You can ride on the hood of the bus if you want, but please come back, because they were losing money. They weren't making any money. So we do not recognize, even in the music business, we take our music for granted. We're like, oh, it's just gonna be there and it's free. No, it's not free. Somebody wrote that song, that's their job. Somebody recorded that song, that's their job. Somebody manufactured that, that's their job. Somebody sang or rapped that song. No, this is how they make their living. So we just have to recognize, and it has to be sustained. And we can't just, like this week, I was real emotional. I was very emotional. I checked myself because I was really upset and angry by the consistent images that I was seeing of Black people being killed. Modern day lynching, a knee on someone's neck. I mean, it's just guns, a sister in her house shot 8 times. The brother, I want to say, was in Chicago, where the police officer said she thought it was her apartment and there was a Black man in it and she killed him. These incidents go on far too often, and they don't seem to happen to white people as much as they do to people of color. So that's why we see the rage and the anger. And I was angry and raging. I didn't march. I wrote checks and made donations to organizations, because that's what a good and grown woman at my part of life, me, is doing. Because I marched in the 70s, I marched in the 80s. I did, and I support people protesting, positive, constructive protesting. I'm all in favor of it.
Thank you so very much. And you mentioned something in one of the conversations there about the president. So seems to be that there were 3 presidents involved in Black Music Month transferring over into African American Music Month. Can you give me the history behind that? And
well, all of the presidents since Jimmy Carter recognized and released some kind of statement about June Black Music Month. Typically when an administration comes in, they see what the administration did before them, and they oftentimes follow, like it's also Pride Month in June. So they follow that template and use it. So all of the American presidents really since Jimmy Carter, but really it got going again when I petitioned President William Jefferson Clinton, Bill Clinton, and they started doing Black music events or meetings and activities again in the Clinton administration. And then George Bush, and then of course it continued with Barack Obama, who changed the name to African American Appreciation Month. And when I got that proclamation, because they sent it to me, I was like, well, hold up. It's Black Music Month. It's been Black Music Month. But again, the preference of President Obama and his administration to rename it. But I want to just clear the air and express the fact that I view it still as Black Music Month. It's interchangeable. I'm not offended, but I still call it Black Music Month.
Can you help me in the role that Congressman Shaka
Fatah. Yes, Shaka Fatah introduced. I wrote the I wrote the draft of the language. And for me, it was important to note in Congress that we are about business, that the music business, as it pertains to Black folks, is a business that generates a lot of money. There's great majesty in all genres that we've created as Indigenous American music. But Shaka Fatah, Senator Arlen Specter were my champions in the White House and in Congress. So I had countless meetings with various politicians that could advance the cause of recognizing June Black Music Month in Congress. So Senator Specter, who is no longer with us, he was a Republican from the state of Pennsylvania. He lobbied on my behalf in the Senate and wrote letters on our behalf for the promotion of June Black Music Month to be official. Shaka Fatah introduced the bill in the House, and that's when it passed. I was sitting in my office. They called me that morning and they said, it's going up for a vote. And then they called me back and said, it is passed unanimously. Congress has now recognized June as Black Music Month. So we had the president, we had Congress, and now, as you see, Orlando, most of the digital platform services have Apple, Tidal. They recognize June Black Music Month. A lot of corporations recognize it. And I'm happy. And that's not to say that we shouldn't celebrate and honor Black music. It should be every day Black music. But this is a specific month for us to celebrate, recognize the majestic contributions of all genres of Black music.
I'd say in the current climate, what does the month currently mean to you? Now, I saw the opt-in from John Platt, the chairman over at Sony ATV Music Publishing, and it noted a couple of outrageous things that the roles that us African American Black executives play in the music industry are very minimal. How do you see us fixing it, or is there a fix? And what are your thoughts just with Black Music Month pushing forward?
Yeah, I think with the Black Tuesday movement happening during Black Music Month was appropriate. And as I said, Jamila and Brianna are making their push. Now major record companies have released statements saying they're opposed to racism. It's kind of intersected with the Black Lives Movement and what is happening on American streets and globally around the world. So there's this, it's like this collision of concepts, but it all is about racism and the eradication of racism for greater parity and equality. And to answer your question, do I see it happening in our lifetime, as I referenced earlier? No, I don't. Racism, the kind of racism that we're dealing with, has been in play for centuries, not for generations or decades. This is something that's been existing for a while, but it's going to take your children, my grandson, and generations to come of people saying, enough of this mess. But again, when you've got powerful people, there's a handful of these very wealthy people that control what is going on this planet. And they're not trying to lose their positioning or their wealth. They're not trying to do that. So I think it's just got to be a sustained effort on the part of all of us to push to make change. I've heard from several white people that I know that I'm friendly with this past week. Like it just came like in a flurry. Are you okay? Are we okay? I'm not racist. I'm white, but I love Black people. I love Black culture. I've gotten a lot of that just this past week. Maybe crazy, maybe a little crazy. Because I'm like, how come you didn't reach out to me last week or the week before or the week before? I mean, now we seem to be communicating a little bit more. I get it.
So understood fully. So the lasting legacy of Black Music Month, like you said, it may not happen in my lifetime, your lifetime, maybe even my children's lifetime. But say 100 years from now, do you think that we'll still be celebrating it as a month, or will there still even be a need for it?
Let me look at my crystal ball. It is my prayer that yes, there will be an ongoing celebration, and I know Kenny Gamble joins me in this, that there will be a recognition of the contributions of Black Americans to our culture and to our industries. I pray that is the case. That is my prayer. As I said, here we are 41 years. When I spoke with Gamble the other day, we both were like, can you believe it's 41 years? I mean, the both of us, we had this conversation. Ed Wright has been ill. We haven't spoken with him in a while, but we still give him credit and recognition for his diligence and his contribution. But I pray that's the case. I mean, Gamble and I have 3 children and a grandson. They are very aware of June Black Music Month. And several of our children are very active in the industry. They work with their father. And they love me. And so my prayer is that we're no longer here physically, they keep it going and pass it on through our family, because it's part of our legacy for our children, that their parents took a stand and said, let us celebrate, salute, recognize, let us elevate this multi-billion-dollar industry, and let's put some respect on it, because that's been missing. Let's put some respect on Black folks. Remember Little Richard got robbed. My thing, I do artist development and media coaching, Orlando, as you well know. I've been coaching artists and high-profile people for the last 26 years. I give books, I give literature, I send links to my clients because I want them to be up on their business. I want them to be aware. Knowledge is power. And the more information you have as an artist or a member of the music community, the better it's going to be, I think, the outcome for you. You're going to be less likely to sign bad contracts. You're going to be less likely to be robbed or taken advantage of by bad management. And it's been going on for a long time, and Black people have done it to other Black people. I'm not just saying it's white folks, but I'm saying educate yourself. And with the internet, there is no excuse for artists coming up, because there's so much information. Like, we're on YouTube right now. So much. You can put a subject matter in and you can educate yourself like you were going to a 4-year college. So I say to people who are coming into our industry, people who are in our industry, continue the process of elevation, of information, of the acquisition of knowledge that is going to help you be a better professional, a better person in our business, in our world.
And I mean, there's nothing else I have to add. That was a beautiful.
No. No, we have to, everybody has different capacities. Some people are good, they're comfortable protesting and marching right now. Some people, like where I am at this point in life, I'd rather make a donation to an organization. One of the questions that I get is, how can people celebrate June Black Music Month? And my response is, I mentioned advertisers and radio stations. Support the advertisers of the radio stations that you listen to. Support the music of the artists that you like. Sit with your loved ones and read books about your favorite artists, or listen to the music of the artists you love. Grown folks, sit with younger people, listen to their music. As difficult as it may be for some parents, what is your child listening to? Have a conversation with them. Music education is disappearing in schools across America. Advocate for your local Board of Educations to put it back in. Children learn through music. Think about how we learned our ABCs. It was a song, Orlando. A, B, C, D, E, F. We learn via music. Let us use music to heal people. It has been scientifically proven that you play music for people who are ill, they feel better. There's a healing aspect of music that resonates in our brains, that releases endorphins. You know this. So we need to teach the proper applications of Black music and sit with others and say, Elvis Presley was not the inventor and creator of rock. It was Chuck Berry, it was Bo Diddley, it was Fats Domino, it was Sister Rosetta Thorpe. These are the people, these are the founding mothers and fathers of rock music. But did they get compensated the way Eric Clapton has been? Did they get compensated the way the Rolling Stones are? And those artists, to their credit, acknowledge that they were inspired by Muddy Waters. The Rolling Stones took their name from a Muddy Waters song. So I want white artists to give props. All due respect, Post Malone, but I'm gonna want to celebrate the Black artists who are not going to necessarily be compensated like an Adele, who credits Black music as her source and inspiration. I just want our people to get respect, compensation.
Yes. I'd say with the shrinking of the trade publications out in the atmosphere, I guess the internet is still available, but the history of music through the trades and the support of acts, there aren't any conventions any longer, for new up and coming acts to kind of maneuver themselves. How do you see that now? In your thoughts?
Well, it's called the internet. You have to use the internet and social media. I work with a lot of young artists today who are signed by record labels because of their audience, how many people they have. I mean, seriously, and TikTok and all of these places, record companies are combing. You know this, you're coming from a digital distribution company. Lots of people, and I say to people, I had a young lady write me recently and she's like, I don't know what to do, I don't know. I was like, well, build your audience. That is free. It doesn't cost you anything to be on Instagram, to put your music, to put yourself out there. The record companies will come to you. They're combing the internet to look for people. Look at a Cardi B. Cardi B had a powerful presence on social media. And then between Mona Scott Young's Love and Hip Hop and her social media, Atlantic Records, there you go. And last year, she just was all kind of major and still is. And she is a voice of the everyday man and woman. I think that's part of what, her straight no trait chaser approach. A lot of people, she says it. A lot of people think it, but Cardi will say it. Okay. And Lizzo, again, Atlantic Records. These are powerful artists, but many of them born out of the internet. So I say to people, you work with what you got until you get what you want.
100%. And so to your point of coming from an independent distribution company, how do you perceive the ownership of rights to artists? Is it something that they should continue to advocate for, or?
Absolutely, Orlando. That is another thing. I'm on the board of the Philadelphia chapter of the Recording Academy. I'm a past president of the Grammy chapter in Philly. And we are engaged actively in changing very antiquated laws from the 20th century regarding royalties. And now you figure when these laws were made, the internet didn't exist the way it does now. It's a different day for music publishers and songwriters and artists. And do you know that artists get paid like a point? I saw it the other day, like a 0.00. It's so minuscule, but that's why artists who have tons like Drake. Drake was the highest paid streamed artist of 2019. I can't remember the number because I'm forgetting numbers, but super major, and it was him, a Black man from Canada. But streaming is important because people are not going to George Daniels record store in Chicago buying records like they used to. They're getting their music through the digital platform services. And they're not buying records like you and I did growing up. It's streaming. But we have to change those laws because that minuscule amount of money that's being paid out to songwriters and artists, that's I started to curse. That's some BS. And that has to be fixed. So we need to have sustained advocacy organized movements to lobby, just like the milk industry and the cheese and the beef industry, just like I went up to Capitol Hill for years, knocking on doors, getting in people's faces about our music. It has to be collective, it has to be sustained to make a difference and change those laws so that our people can make a decent living from that which they create.
Well, thank you so very much for that. I've seen statements from artists that I've, not even artists, producers and catalogs of records that are streaming, and they can't believe, how is this not unrecouped, after 20 years, So to your point, yes, advocacy is a very, lobbying Congress, the Senate is a very, very important portion of that. Even the streaming royalties now currently is a big, big, big issue with the recording artists. Just across.
Yeah, they're not making money. But who's making that money, Orlando?
That's a very, very pointed question. I don't know.
Sony just donated $100 million. They announced this week that they're donating $100 million to different Black Lives organizations. We need to get a better handle on where this money is going, who is going, but they need to start by paying their artists. You're talking about that's guilt money. That's guilt money that they're donating. And it sounds like, I'm not downplaying $100 million. It's a lot of money, but how much is Sony worth? How much is Sony worth? How much money does Sony make off of Black music?
Which is the #1 stream genre of music in the world currently. So
hip hop, the #1 stream genre. So when we say the music business made about $20 billion last year, can we safely assume a large chunk of that money came from Black people? Yeah. I think so. My good city college, Temple University education tells me that's the case.
Yes, yes. So no,
but we struggle. We struggle still.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that should not be the case.
So, oh man, thank you so very much. Is there anything else you wanted to discuss? I was kind of out of, I'm overwhelmed by what you've actually given us, the information, just, everything as a whole. So I want to congratulate you on creating a template for me to kind of follow in my career, even the appreciation of having Black Music Month and being able to be honored and have conversations with my counterparts about the appreciation of music as a whole and what we've actually created and what the history has created and what the legacy we want to leave behind. In the next couple of weeks, kind of going down the line, what we've done at ONErpm through our social media accounts, we're going to let artists come out and, just leave posts about what they want to leave their legacy, how they want their legacies to be remembered. Just as they, from the younger artists to the older artists, not just artists either, engineers, producers, songwriters, because there's, like you said, there's so many other facets to
the journalists, the DJs. So many people. And Orlando, if I may, this last, I'd like to leave you with, I am a member of the board of the National Museum of African American Music in Nashville, Tennessee. We are opening in the fall of 2020. We're looking at around Labor Day weekend. And if we cannot open physically, although cities are starting to open up again, it'll be virtual. But I'm working with Henry Hicks. I'm co-chair of the Music Industry Relations Committee. And we have an aggregation of some really boss people who care about fixing the royalty rates, fixing these archaic deals that artists sign that have them locked into like virtual slavery. It's like slavery contracts in many cases. Independence. We didn't talk a lot about when we're talking about independence, ownership and control of their masters. But the museum is celebrating Black music from the 1600s straight on up to now. It'll be open. Please bring your family. Please join our museum. It is a cultural institution that focuses on America's indigenous music made by folks that look like you and me. It is going to be in the heart of downtown. It's on 5th and Broadway in the heart of downtown Nashville, which is Music City, enhanced even further by gospel, R&B, because one of the first big R&B stations, Nashville. A lot of people don't know that. I actually had to learn it a little later in life. But I am excited to be part of the movement and encourage others to join the museum, because that's another thing you can do during June Black Music Month. Support institutions that support our music and culture.
Thank you so very much. And we will. Actually, we have a large office at ONErpm in Nashville, I believe right around the corner from there. So I'll make it a point to bring the entire family.
Yes, please do. Please do, Orlando. And again, I salute you. You have been on the forefront of helping to develop so many artists and their careers. One of my favorites that I cite a lot is Nicole Buss, who I actually had the opportunity to work with at Rock Nation. But I'm grateful to you for this opportunity to talk about the significance of Black Music Month, its history, why it's still relevant, how we can support it, and let us continue to celebrate America's indigenous, our own music. We created this, Black folks.
Yes, we did. And thank you so very much.
My pleasure.
All right. It was a pleasure. Bye-bye.
All right, Orlando, peace.